Welcome back to Friday Night with me, Matt Goodwin. Well, this Labour government has just let down the British people all over again. Prime Minister Keir Starmer has struck a one-in, one-out, shake-it-all-about migration deal, or you might call it an exchange programme for illegal migrants, with France's Emmanuel Macron in what I think is the ultimate gimmick. Just last year, Labour slammed the Conservative Party, remember, for the Rwanda scheme, which they called a gimmick.
The Rwanda scheme was dead and buried before it started. It's never been a deterrent. And I'm not prepared to continue with gimmicks that don't act as a deterrent.
But now Labour's come up with the ultimate gimmick. And this deal makes a mockery of what the British people really want. We don't want one in, one out. We want none in and all of the illegal migrants out. We want the estimated 1.2 million illegal migrants who are currently living in Britain removed from Britain. And we want our culture, our way of life to be protected, to be promoted, and not to be continuously eroded by uncontrolled mass migration. Keir Starmer's spokesperson has insisted that the migrant agreement with Macron will be more successful than the Conservative Party's Rwanda scheme. But let's not forget that the Rwanda scheme only resulted in 4 migrants being deported, and they left voluntarily. So the bar is already extremely low. Tackling illegal migration is crucial for both the UK and France as more migrants flood into Europe from overseas. But Labour Home Secretary Yvette Cooper said today that they have not even figured out how many migrants are going to be returned. Watch this.
The whole purpose of what we're doing is to bring down these dangerous boat crossings because we think no one should be making those boat crossings. What we did say, what the Prime Minister said yesterday, is there's no single silver bullet, whether it's about this new returns agreement, which frankly I think is the right thing to do, or any of the other measures that we're talking about. We've seen 6 years of people claiming that one single thing, particularly the previous government claiming one single thing, or opposition parties claiming one single thing, is going to solve it. What we need is a comprehensive approach that looks across the board.
A comprehensive approach. I mean, this is completely bananas. The stark reality is that it's estimated only 50 illegal migrants will be returned to France each week. That is 1.5% of the total number who have arrived on the small boats since this crisis began. 1.5%. I struggle to grasp how 50 illegal migrants a week are going to make a dent in this crisis when hundreds are arriving every day. You know, I didn't think Keir Starmer could make a worse deal than the Chagos deal, but this returns deal could actually become a major pull factor to the UK for thousands more asylum seekers, as Britain will now have to accept some of them who make it to France. Asylum seekers will be able to apply online to be relocated. This includes those with family connections in the UK and those who are most likely to be exploited by people smugglers. And during a press conference this week, Sir Keir defended letting migrants in. Here's what he said. "We accept genuine asylum seekers because it is right that we offer a haven to those who are most in need. We simply cannot solve a challenge like stopping the boats by acting alone and telling our allies that we won't play ball." All while it's been revealed exclusively today by GBNews that private companies, get this, have secured over £5 billion in UK government contracts to provide border security services. The average contracts in terms of value are £27 million, costing the UK taxpayer 73 quid per person to cover everything from drones in the Channel to marquees at processing centres. The National Audit Office has separately estimated that this border crisis in terms of accommodation costs could cost $15 billion over the next 10 years. The deal is already seeing a backlash, including, by the way, among the French, as both the head of the Northern France region and the mayor of Calais today have come out, unsurprisingly, and said that this deal, agreed by Keir Starmer, will only draw more migrants to the Channel coast. And the French are saying what is obvious. Keir Starmer's dodgy deal on the small boats crisis will only lead to a surge of yet more migration as the prospect of asylum in the UK is now put on the table. I don't know about you, but I don't want an exchange programme for illegal migrants who break our laws. I don't want another country having control over who comes in and out of our own country. I want secure borders now. We need to leave the European Convention on Human Rights. We need to reform the Human Rights Act. We need to start making serious strides towards delivering the real change that the hard-working, tax-paying British majority both deserve and need.
Do you want to save a boatload of cash this summer wherever you have a trip planned? The one thing you're going to need is access to the internet and on the go. And you can do that easily with Saily. Hit the link in the description to get 15% of your first eSIM plan ready for your trip so you can browse to your heart's content. Saily gets you a local SIM card you can use when traveling so you don't have to pay those crazy roaming fees just to send a message or check the latest news. Now, they've got plans in over 160 countries, 8 regions, so pretty much everywhere, wherever you're going, they'll be able to make sure you're connected. So how does it work? All you've got to do is this. Hit the link in the description to download the app. It will work on iOS or Android. Buy a plan. You can choose an amount of data and time frame that suits you best. And then just install the eSIM on your phone. When you land at your holiday destination, you can activate your plan instantly. And if that wasn't enough, Saily eSIMs only ever have to be installed once. So when you go on your next trip, you just buy a plan for a new country, turn that eSIM back on, and boom, you're back watching me on GBNews. I'll be using a Saily SIM on my next holiday because it's actually faster than some of the hotel Wi-Fis. You can get unlimited data if you want, so you can scroll away to your heart's content. And when you leave the hotel, you don't have to do that annoying thing of Wi-Fi hopping because you've got constant connectivity wherever you go. And they've got 24/7 support as well and a full refund policy if your eSIM isn't compatible. So get sorted for your next trip. Download Saily using the link in the description below. And if you use the code NEWS at checkout, you'll get an exclusive 15% discount on us. So click the link, download Saily, and use the code NEWS at checkout.
Well, to debate this now tonight is former editor at LabourList, Peter Edwards. Peter, I put it to you, this deal between Keir Starmer and Emmanuel Macron, if you want to call it that, is probably the biggest gimmick we've ever seen in British politics, is it not?
Good evening. Well, I think you're living in a reform-led dystopia, really, and I want to kind of bring you back to reality. You know, the number of migrants forcibly removed to Rwanda was 0. The number of returns deals agreed by the previous 5 Tory prime ministers was 0. The number of policy papers produced by Reform to tackle this was 0. And Nigel Farage said this week he hadn't had time to do it. Reform's number one issue, small boats. Farage said he hadn't got time to prepare a policy to publish on this. There is a deal. There was none before.
Peter, you're very good on numbers. So please answer this simple question. How many illegal migrants will be removed from the UK to France through this deal?
Well, I think, Matt, you can answer that because clearly someone in the Home Office has briefed out that a pilot, and everyone understands, you're a very intelligent chap, Matt, you know what a pilot is. You mean you start small and scale it up. Pilot scheme, 50 a week. 50 is more than 0, and you well understand what a pilot scheme. If it works, it'll be expanded.
I've got another number for you, Peter, 170,000. 170,000 people who have broken our laws by entering our country. That's more people than we've got in the British Army, Peter.
Yes, so that's since about 2016, I think, so 9 to 10 years.
2018.
That number is correct. And, you know, it goes back, remember those 5 Tory prime ministers? I haven't got time to list them all or the interview would end, but they all agreed no deals with France. Liz Truss couldn't even work out if
Peter,
France was a friend or a foe.
I'm the last person in Westminster to defend the Tories on immigration. I'm with you on that. They made a complete mess of it. But let me just give you another number. 7 to 10 billion pounds. That's what this is costing the British people every year, this crisis. So as Labour have announced this deal, within hours, we've got the head of the northern region of France, we've got the mayor of Calais saying the only thing this deal will do is create a major pull factor for more migrants across the Middle East and Northern Africa to head into Calais because of the prospects of applying for asylum. You've just created another major pull factor that's going to pour gasoline over this migration crisis.
Well, Matt, I haven't poured gasoline over anyone, and I think that's a bit of a lurid metaphor to use. But actually,
that's what's happening to the country, Peter. Well, it's like a tinderbox.
I don't think it is. And by the way, I have lived in the north of England before you say you're a London-based Liberal. But let's come back to the facts at heart of it. Because I read some of those interviews with French regional politicians today as well. And the primary reason they were down about the deals, because they felt it's too much in Britain's favour. So that would appear to pull the rug from underneath you. So, Peter, why should the French have any say over our migration policy? Why should the French be deciding who can come to the UK and who should not? We're a sovereign, self-governing, independent nation. I don't understand why Labour are always so quick
to sign off powers over our own country to other nations. We saw it with Chagos.
Matt,
we saw it with Keir Starmer's EU deal. We saw it with the India trade deal, and now we see it with this. Why doesn't the Labour Party actually believe in Britain and believe in the capacity of our own people and our own politicians to solve our own problems?
Well, I think, Matt, you're interviewing yourself. But Britain could live in glorious isolation, just as Liz Truss
isolation, Peter. I just want control
Matt,
borders.
You're interviewing yourself. We could live in glorious isolation, or we could do deals. It's a problem that embraces the whole of Europe, if not much of the Western world. As we all know, there's an enormous channel between us and France. The idea with all that water, we can solve this on our own, is la-la land. Of course we need to do a deal in France. Do we do a deal within France and try and get the best outcome for Britain, or do we just be rude to France, as Liz Truss was, and persist in glorious isolation with the numbers going up and up and up? There'll be criticism in the Daily Mail and the Daily Express over the deal, but the only outcome worse than do a deal is doing nothing. Nothing. And people die in the water. They're dying every week, Matt.
Peter, they're dying because we have one government after another that refuses to do what they need to do to solve this crisis. You've just said...
What's your suggestion then?
I'm about to give it to you right now. You have just said that the people who are complaining about this crisis, myself included, Nigel Farage, a Reform Party, don't put forward any suggestions. Here is one for you. A very simple, clear idea. We could do it almost immediately, and it would give us much greater control, not only over the borders, but over our ability to deport foreign criminals. Are you ready for this, Peter? Let's leave the European Convention on Human Rights.
Exactly. So not an original thought, and not one that is popular either. No party in the last 30 years has got within a sniff of winning a general election on the basis of pulling out of the ECHR. So, you're absolutely entitled to critique the deal, and you're absolutely entitled to...
Why don't you think we should leave the ECHR? Answer the question.
Because I think that would put us in the same bracket as places like Zimbabwe and Iran. And secondly,
every other Anglophone nation across the world that is not a member of the ECHR.
There is no mandate for it. If you want to get into bed with Iran and Zimbabwe, good luck to you. But there's no public mandate
for Canada and Australia
for pulling out of the ECHR. Put it to the vote then. The public are content to stay in the ECHR.
I would put it to you, Peter, if we had a referendum in this country where we said, in order to better control your borders and deport Pakistani paedophiles and Jamaican drug dealers and Nigerian sex offenders, we need to leave the European Convention on Human Rights, which is used by criminals and illegal migrants and activist lawyers, Articles 3 and 8 of the ECHR, to keep those people in our country, around our families, around our children. I would put it to you that 90% of Brits in this country would say, yeah, let's get out of this ECHR and let's control our own borders. What you're doing, the Labour Party are doing, is you're just giving people gimmicks, one gimmick after another, while saying you're going to control the borders. This isn't going to control the borders, Peter. This is one in, one out. It's an exchange programme for illegal migrants.
I think you're interviewing yourself again. And obviously I'm a supporter of the Labour Party, but I'm not a spokesman on it. And it goes back to your point earlier. I haven't signed any deals with anyone, but I think this deal is much better than doing nothing. And going back to your other point, there is no majority in the United Kingdom for pulling out of the ECHR. So you're completely entitled to advocate that, but you're in a minority. Most people think you're wrong, and I'm afraid.
Well, listen, one of my hats is as a pollster, and I know that you're talking nonsense on that one. The large majority of British people want to reduce migration. They want to control the borders.
Do you have a poll to quote?
Sure. Well, let's take Keir Starmer's Island of Strangers speech as an example, where he said immigration is basically out of control. There's lots of polling on the ECHR. I've done polling myself showing that over half of Brits, more than half the country, would support exiting the ECHR if it meant we had better control of our borders. Here's my issue. We're now going to have another year of this crisis getting worse and the opportunities being wasted. And what I'm worried about, Peter, is the people out there who are paying billions of pounds, they're giving up on the system. They are distrustful of Westminster. They're distrustful of politicians because they're being sold one gimmick after another, whether it is under the Tories, whether it's under the Labour Party. My frustration is rooted in the fact that nobody in Westminster seems willing to deal with the underlying root cause, which is we don't control our own borders because we don't control our own laws. We need to get back to being a sovereign nation. We need to leave the ECHR, reform Tony Blair's Human Rights Act, strip back the amount of welfare we offer to people who break our laws, and have a third country processing centre outside of Britain. Peter, if you met me halfway on that, if we said, let's actually start to change the fundamentals of this crisis, I'd put it to you, our nation would be a lot stronger as a result of it.
Well, Matt, I'll say what I think the Labour Party are too diplomatic to say, that it's not just that Rwanda was a gimmick. The Rwanda scheme was a stain upon the conscience of Britain. And I say that because I've been to Rwanda. Rwanda is recovering from a genocide. It's a war-torn country with enormous doubts about freedom and democracy under President Kagame. It is a grieving nation, and it was more than just a gimmick. It was more than improper. It was immoral for Britain under the Tories to sign a deal with Rwanda. It was wrong and it was wicked.
Peter Edwards, as I say, I'm the last person in Westminster to defend a Tory record on immigration, but I, as always, appreciate your willingness to debate these issues, and we thank you for your time tonight.